Namaskar and welcome to INDOZ Television. I am Reena Augustine and you're watching Life's Legal Journey with Cornerstone Law Offices. I have Pravinita Singh Pillai here. Thank you very much for coming along, Pravinita.
Thanks, Reena. Hello to our viewers.
Last time we spoke about the DV of the journey with Carrie and Maya. And I wanted to elaborate a bit more this episode because we are confused after whatever goes through. In the start, it was only emotional abuse, it was financial abuse, but now it's out of hands. And as we spoke about the physical abuse and what the women can do or the men can do.
So generally people will try and hide the abuse, right? And as we spoke about it, Reena, physical abuse is easy to see. But then you'll have people telling story about, oh, I just ran into the wall or the door or something like that, or I fell, instead of admitting that they were, beaten up by their spouse. Whether they go to their doctor or not to get medical attention is another story, right? So it's important that they do, but they may not. When they're doing school drop-offs, taking children to school, if you observe something, someone who is bubbly and full of life and all of a sudden they're withdrawn and they're dodging you at the car park and things like that, you need to keep your eyes and ears open. So if you view something, you should ask and you should talk to them. And generally, people will open up when they can, when they feel comfortable and safe enough to do that. So so when the physical abuse starts, it's got to stop. Otherwise, you're enabling it.
Yeah.
It's if you let it go the first time without taking action, then my thoughts are that it'll continue because you've just given permission.
That's right. I have to ask you. I have asked you many times. Why is it hard for us to come out? The social pressure, the peer pressure is there, and the community pressure is there. How can we overcome?
Yeah, it is difficult because, as you said, it's the community pressure. Now, the other thing also to remember is not just difficult for women to talk about it. Men get abused a lot, and they don't talk about it at all, because again, it's that society says, well, why are you complaining like a woman?
That's right.
So men, how do they deal with it? That's why you're seeing a whole heap of suicide happening, a whole heap of depression happening, all of that kind of stuff. Because men, again, especially in our society, in Australian society, men are supposed to be these machos, right? These strong persons, and they can't be complaining or saying to them. You ask a guy, how are you doing? Oh, I'm fine. But inside it's killing them, because who do they speak with? Who do they talk to? They can't talk to their friends. They're not going to talk to their family about it. Who will they talk to? So it's important to recognize, again, going back to the fact that you recognize changes in your friends, in their demeanor, or they may not want to start coming out with you anymore. They would go and play soccer or football or golf with you, and all of a sudden, no, they don't want to do this. They're withdrawing themselves. They're sitting there playing computer games, things like that, isolating themselves. Then you know that something's not right.
Wow, it's amazing to know that people actually, men especially, want to be macho.
Yes.
And even to go to a person, the counseling. Sorry, I wasn't getting the right word. The counseling, they think 10 times because the society looks down upon them. That, oh, why is he having counseling for?
Correct.
What's wrong with him?
Yes, so it's the negative stigma that we attach with getting any professional help.
Yeah.
So I get clients who say, when relationships break down, and I'm talking to the clients and I'm always telling them, you need to go through counseling, because I can deal with your legal matter quite easily. I've been doing it for over 20 years. I've heard it all, I've seen it all, I know exactly what I need to do in terms of the legal side of it. But the emotional side, I'm not a counselor, I'm not a psychologist, I can't help you there, right? So I always say to them, you need to go and see a counselor, and that's the reaction I get from even women and men. Well, he or she is going to use that against me. If I go and see a counselor, aren't they going to use that against me to say that I'm mentally unstable? And aren't they going to use that against me in the custody battle? About the children, because they're going to say, well, she or he can't keep their stuff together, they have mental illness, etc., etc. It's the negative stigma.
Yeah.
But
is
that's
that
not, no.
Okay.
It's the opposite. The courts do not look at it that way at all. They look at it as, if you have you are suffering from depression, you're suffering from anxiety, you're suffering from any of those mental health conditions, any condition, that you're getting the help you need. That's the positive. So it's important to get that help. So no, courts do not look at it in a negative way.
That is a very, very important information, Pravanita.
Yes.
Because the first thing which we think is, why is the lawyer telling us to go there? Are they going to use it against us?
Yeah. Yes.
You know?
Yes.
But no, it's not.
No. It's, if you don't get the help, if you can't acknowledge what issues you have and get the right help, well, that could negatively impact your case. So it's important to get the help that's needed.
Very important, very important. Where do the kids go? What happens to the kids?
Yeah.
So the mother is having counseling, father is having counseling, they're not talking to each other. Who has the kids now?
Yes, so that's when the battle starts about who little Johnny is going to live with, right? So the starting point is you have to go through a mediation process. Now there are exceptions to going to mediation if there is significant domestic violence because of the power imbalance. So for instance, you say, the abuse is so high that I can't even think straight. How am I going to mediate and discuss the care arrangements for our children with this person? Again, not gender specific. But if you can go to mediation, you must before you go to court. Because guess what? At the end of the day, you may have separated from each other. The children haven't decided to separate. You still have to co-parent. You still have to be adults and talk about your children and raise them together in separate homes, but you're still raising them together. You'll still have graduations to attend. You will still have engagement parties to attend. You will still have baby showers and weddings to attend. So you have to rise above and do things together for your children. Who is best to know how to raise your children than yourselves? Not a judge. If you're going to end up in court because you can't sort things out yourselves, and yes, there are situations which need a court to make that decision, well then so be it. But it's important to go through mediation. It's a very cost-effective way to resolve things rather than going to court, being tied up in the legal system for 2-3 years and having a judge tell you when you're going to see your children.
So how does mediation work? So where do we go to get a mediator?
Yes, so on the Law Society website is a whole list of mediators. There are Relationships Australia, these several family dispute resolution centres. These are various organisations which provide mediation services, which are cost-effective ones. Then you've got your private mediators from the Law Society. So yeah, you basically agree on someone that you're going to mediate with. Now, need to understand you don't have to be in the same room with your ex, because if you can't sit around a round table and talk about it, that's fine. You can be in separate rooms and the mediator will go in between the rooms. And you basically think of an auction, like an auction. You're making some offers, some proposals, the other party is making some proposals, as in court today, and this is effectively what we did with the other side's lawyer and myself, effectively mediated a resolution. And thankfully these parents were sensible enough to discuss, we're talking about a 2.5-year-old child, and we were able to, with the help of lawyers, work out a plan which would be final orders. So that's in place now, and she will spend X number of time with mummy and X number of time with daddy.
What a stressful situation. It
is. You think it's stressful for the adults? Think about the children. They have to then, children are resilient, so they will cope, but they cope better when the adults are not bickering and fighting. So, I say to my clients, when they get into that hate mode, I almost pause and say to them, let's go back to the time when we fell in love. We obviously had something to like about each other or love about each other to then have a family. So let's start thinking about these little human beings we've created, because they need us, they need you. So it's important to think about them and not put yourself first. Because guess what? The law says it's about what's in the best interest of the children. It's not about what mummy wants or what daddy wants. And this whole, people start talking about, but I don't want this or I don't want that and he can't have this, and it's not about that.
It is such a hard decision.
It is, but it's changing your mindset. And again, if you don't get your counseling done, you're still going to be in that phase of hatred, anger, sadness. So it's important to shift your mindset.
That's right. So let's see the DV happens and now the protection order is being made.
Yes.
So can husband wife stay under one roof?
Yes. So if you decide not to split up, you can still have your protection order in place. Now remember, in one of the episodes we spoke about if there's an incident and the police get called and the police take out an order against one of the parties and you still decide, okay, we're not ending this relationship, Gary and Maya still want to work it out and they're going through counseling, that order will still be there.
Forever?
So, well, not forever, it's for 5 years, but you can make an application to vary it, which means you can make it an application to get rid of it. Now, courts are not that quick to just get rid of orders because they want to see that there's progress happening in the relationship through counseling, through anger management counseling, whatever the issues were. If there's drug abuse, is one of them going into rehab. So it's not to say, oh yeah, it's everything's hunky-dory now, dear judge, now get rid of the order. No, they're not going to buy into that because, you know, next 2 weeks or a month you'll be back in court. So they want to see actual third-party assistance, that you're getting the help that you need to really make this work. Because they don't want you to come back to court 10 times. So yes, the short answer is yes, you can still live together. If you breach that order, if one person breaches that order, then it becomes a criminal offense. And you commit the crime enough times, you'll end up in jail.
That's right. So, unfortunately, this question is very sad to even ask. Do people misuse this kind of orders?
Yes, absolutely. Absolutely. And as we've spoken about before, there are genuine cases, and then you've got cases where people are abusing the system to get what they want. So you'll have scenarios where there is either no abuse or very low level of abuse, in the sense of perhaps it's, you know, emotional abuse in terms of calling names and that kind of stuff, and swearing and all that kind of stuff, rather than actual financial or physical abuse. But the relationship is ending and one party wants the other one out of the house and they're not leaving the house, they've been asked to leave and they're not leaving for whatever reason, then people will make an application for a protection order, and within that order they'll make an application for what's called the ouster order, which means you get one party kicked out of the house. That way you've got the house to yourself, they may be still paying the mortgage and you're living there pretty, you know, and the other person has to go and find rental accommodation elsewhere, and they're abusing the system to get their way.
That's injustice.
It is, but and that's a fine line, and that's why, you know, courts are not blindly just making orders. They have to look at the evidence.
Evidences,
yes. So that's one scenario. The other one is in the migration sector, unfortunately, because if you are being sponsored as a spouse and you're on that application process, and you claim that there's domestic abuse and you make an application for a protection order, while that case is pending, you are entitled to a bridging visa to remain in the country, because rightfully you have the right to challenge that application or the right to proceed with that application until the end of that case. So that is a basis on which people will, you know, file a protection order application to remain in the country.
That's right. That's
Yes,
right.
yes.
And unfortunately, many get away with it.
They do, yeah. And I mean, there are, like I said, there are extreme situations where, because of the abuse, one party will get the permanent residency, etc., not requiring that spouse support application sort of thing. Yes. Yes.
Okay, so the relationship between the husband, wife, and now the children are involved, and I said that, is there a place that they can go? So when this problem is happening and the parents are having a fight, is there a third party where the children can stay? Is there a availability like that?
So you're talking about when there's serious abuse of the children, or they're being exposed to serious violence and abuse.
Both.
Normally it's drugs, alcohol abuse, neglect of the children, or, you know, abuse actually of the children. Then yes, the Department of Child Safety will get involved. Children will be put in foster care.
Okay.
Or what we call first kinship care, which means your blood relations. So they could be put with aunties, uncles, or grandparents. So yes, so that's an option. It's always a better option that they go with family before third parties.
Yeah.
So in my line of work, I also work as an independent children's lawyer, where there are significantly difficult cases in the sense of there's allegations of abuse or drug use on both parents, violence and all of that sort of stuff that the children have either been exposed to or been subjected to. So courts appoint independent children's lawyers, and our job is to represent the children. Okay, so we have to gather independent evidence from the police, Department of Child Safety, medical evidence, schools. We talk to their teachers, we get their reports, we see how they're going with counseling, etc. And we provide that independent evidence to the court to make a determination of what should happen to these children.
Yeah.
Should they go and spend time with mummy or daddy, or live with mummy or daddy, or should they be seeing each parent in a supervised setting? Or they shouldn't even be placed in their care, they should go to a third party. Mm-hmm. So I have a situation at I've got a number of those matters at the moment. But one is where the father is in jail, the mother is an ice addict, so the child has been placed with mom's mom, so maternal grandmother, and that's where the child is safe at the moment, and then we'll go through the process basically. So yeah, at the end of the day, the court's job is to make orders which protect the children, because they're the vulnerable party. Yeah.
Yeah. Wow. And everybody, whoever is going through this, they have to take legal help.
Well, it's advisable. I think it's a bit. It's a complex system, and if you don't know what you're doing, well then you can't just have your say. You need to bring evidence, because the court system is busy, because there are lots of families breaking up, etc. But what judges are sick and tired of hearing is he says this, she says this, and there's no evidence.
No.
One person's just saying this, or as I was in court today, where the judge is talking about this is the mother's perception. This is not what the son has said has happened. This is what the mother is interpreting it to have happened. Okay, and then she stopped his time with daddy. So the courts have to work with evidence, because the law says what is the actual evidence.
Evidence, yes.
Yeah, so it's important, to get the legal advice and understand not just the law but the process.
Yeah.
And then, get your evidence in line, because that's what the judge is looking for. The judge is not interested in your opinion or what you think mummy has said or brainwashed or daddy has brainwashed.
So this law applies till the age of 18?
Yes, so exactly, yes. So, children up to the age of 18, legal age in Australia is 18. However, having said that, courts generally won't make orders for children who are 16 or 17, because guess what? They're teenagers at that age, and at that age, they're a bit more independent. You try and tell a 16 or 17-year-old where they need to go and live, they'll just run away from home.
That's right.
So that's more of a risk. That's more of an unacceptable risk of harm to them. So, yeah, it's unlikely that a court will make an order for a 16 or 17-year-old. But yeah, they absolutely can make orders.
Make orders.
Yeah.
Ladies and gentlemen, you are watching Life's Legal Journey with Cornerstone Law Offices. We'll back.